April, ask me anything. You are stuck with or I don't know, it depends how Scott, it's already holiday where he is. So yeah, so you get me today. Hopefully, I think we'll be able to work through some of these questions and get you guys in and out pretty efficiently and leave some time at the end for some questions. All right, Kathleen asked, what is the best way to lose weight while still training? I want to lose 10 pounds yet still fuel correctly. So I think this question is complicated. We've kind of worked through it before. Losing 10 pounds, especially for women, is a significant amount of weight and can be a lot more difficult than it can be for men, Kathleen. So my suggestion is always look at potentially moderate weight loss goals. So maybe 3 to 5 pounds. And that is very doable while still training and hoping to fuel correctly. Performance and body composition, you really have to choose if you want to have a substantial weight loss. That being said, if you really strategically look at where calorie consumption could change and which sessions you could potentially do without fuel, every little bit helps. So I think integrating in the app, you can select the weight loss goal and you can do like a moderate, which I think is still very healthy and still will not get in the way, as long as you're paying attention to fueling those bigger sessions that really matter. And then being very particular about the food that you are consuming. I try to have a very healthy approach to food, and that there are no bad foods, there are no forbidden foods. But I think when body composition is a goal, there are definitely foods that will help. So really getting a lot of your carbohydrates outside of training from vegetables, making your protein sources very lean, with the exception of maybe some fatty fish, looking at the types of fat and how much fat you're consuming, and really sticking to the macronutrient goals for the day. Because over the course of a week, if you are 5 or 6 grams of fat here, 18 grams of carbs there, it all adds up. And so I think you just have to be very dialed in during the season. Out of season, post season, that's really the time to focus on body composition and look at potentially a more significant weight loss goal. All right, Rachel asks, as far as daily hydration, do you have a recommended amount of water that we should drink? What about electrolytes not including training? So across the literature, evidence suggests that we want about 8 ounces of water per waking hour for the first 10 hours, and then dial it back to about 5 ounces per hour after that. Now, obviously, you don't have to set your clock by it. I think a lot of us, like, I have a very large mug. I always have a water bottle in my hand. So, 24-ounce bottle, a 16-ounce bottle, that could easily be consumed. But if you look over the course of the day, that 10 hours, 8 ounces, so 80 ounces kind of spread throughout the day, and that's outside of training. As far as electrolytes go, both Scott and I feel that there's a significant amount of sodium in most people's diets. Even if you don't add a lot of, sea salt to your cooking, there's sodium in salad dressings, in bread, in oatmeal, in chips. You like chips like I do, in a lot of the foods that we're already consuming. So if you are hydrating properly with electrolytes during your training, most of the time, I would say you can get away without needing electrolytes. I personally feel better when I have some electrolytes before bed. My training sessions just go well the next day. I found through kind of trial and error. So at night, the last thing I have is a bottle with some SOS in it. I notice a difference. Again, it's a personal preference thing. It's also, if you have not been properly hydrating throughout the day, or if potentially you had a double session, if you're a heavy, salty sweater, which I am, those extra electrolytes really can help. And I think it matters too that you've done the sodium testing and that you know sweat testing. A lot of our athletes realize that they're not consuming enough during their training, so you potentially aren't getting enough electrolytes. So I would say if you're really paying attention to that, then you may or may not need to add some in. All right, Beto asked, I've noticed my weight has increased after 45. I'm 47 now. I eat less than I should, but don't lose weight, even training 12 to 15 hours a week. Is this an aging thing, or am I doing something wrong? Many of us can attest to feeling that kind of frustration. Potentially, if you are eating a lot less, then you could be doing more damage than good. If you're cutting calories too drastically, then your body, if you're not feeding it properly, then your body's not going to be losing weight. I would always, for men or women, want to look at a hormone blood profile. Like, do you have thyroid issues? For men, are you low in testosterone? For women, what's the estrogen? What's going on there? Yes, as we age, unfortunately, it is a little bit harder to maintain weight. I would look at if you're doing strength training, and then I would also suggest really looking at the types of foods that you're eating. And, if it's something, schedule a consult with Scott and myself. We can dial in your diet. We can look at what the app has you working on every day. We can look at your training. There's, I think, a lot of components, but in the order of, are you actually eating enough? To be in a caloric deficit is important for weight loss, but if you drop that too significantly, you could be in trouble. Blood work, hormone profile. Are you strength training? That absolutely helps with body composition. Sleep. Can't believe I almost forgot that. That plays a big part, especially as we age, in metabolism, in weight gain and or loss, stress, looking at your life, what other components might be coming in. And then really, are you making the best food choices with the food that you're consuming? All right, slightly controversial. Sal asks, what do you think about eFuel? Is this a quality product? I'd heard about it. I think I had an athlete or two ask, but I had to go look it up because I really hadn't. So this is they make a drink mix and a gel. I think it's Crank Sports puts it on. And I would love to get them on maybe one of our webinars to talk about it. I don't like to pick on companies or products without giving them a chance to kind of say their piece and talk about why they developed the product in the way that they did. My first reaction to the product is they use a lot of science terms and literature, but it's twisted in a way that it sounds better. So for example, it's like their e-gel, and I'm reading this directly from the website, loaded with complex carbs instead of sugars, 4 times the electrolytes to avoid cramping. Let's see, no protein, fat, or fiber, low sugar, no sugar spikes and crashes. They really talked about like not having your blood sugar spike and not having an insulin reaction. Here's the thing. Outside of the athletic community, outside of participating in sport, yes, it's a good idea to try to maintain a healthy balance in our blood sugar, to watch potential sugars, complex carbohydrates such as oats and grains and starches are fantastic and an important part of everyone's diet. But taking that, I guess, claim and then putting it into a product and saying this is going to help an athlete because you don't want an insulin spike, you don't want sugar, you don't actually, we do. We do, that's why we're taking in gels or chews or drink mixes, is because we know that up to 60 grams of glucose per hour, up to 90 and 120 grams per hour of a glucose fructose mix. In the scientific studies, in the literature done on competitive athletes of all different sports, mostly cycling, the research shows that athletes need this and athletes perform better. Now, could this product potentially work for people that are working on body composition where performance isn't potentially the top goal? Maybe if they, they love triathlon and they like what they're doing, but they're doing it to be healthy. Potentially there's a place for this. The gels themselves have 150 calories, so a good amount. It's 37 grams of carbs, but only 7 grams of sugar. So, and the other thing I do not like about the company and the website is I could not find it anywhere. I, searched for all of 5 minutes, but still the label and the ingredients and the actual mixture that is complex carbohydrates. I'm using air quotes if you can't see. I don't like it when people tell me this is like, here's what we have, and then they don't actually tell me what makes up the here's what we have. So I can't say that I would encourage any of my athletes to go out and grab them. In their defense, the consistency is slightly less viscous, so more watery. All of the users on their website that left reviews all said it was very easy on their stomach. So potentially there is room for people, your sports nutrition is entirely individual. If you've been trying it and it works for you, great. If you want to give it a shot, I'm not saying don't. It's just, it's not going to do what we tell you to do, and ideally what we want. I do like that there's sodium in there. None of their gels have caffeine, which I can't for the life of me. I mean, if they want to make some with caffeine and some without, obviously a good idea, but they very much marketed that there was no caffeine, which as one of the 5 very proven, tested ergonogenic aids, not exactly sure why you'd be against it. There's antioxidants in there, so vitamin C and vitamin E. The vitamin E, I want to say was like over 100% of your daily recommended vitamin E, which we know, and again, if you're using it in a race, no big deal. But if you're using it daily in your training, high levels of antioxidants can actually work against training adaptations. So I would be a little hesitant there. Yeah, that would be my, try to think if there was anything else in my note. That would be my take. Again, I am more than willing to learn from and discuss with the Crank Sports, I think is what it's called. But there are so many excellent gels on the market that I would be going to those first. All right, Les asks, at what point after missing days of taking creatine does one need to repeat the preloading process? I've been diligent for a couple of years, but I'm currently in the middle of moving and my routine has been disrupted. Great question, Les. So I would almost argue that you don't ever have to preload unless there's kind of an outside health concern or specific issue that you're trying to address. Creatine, to get full saturation in our muscles, takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks. Men about 3, women about 4, depending. And it takes about that much time to fully lose saturation in your muscles. And it's not like you'll never have creatine in your muscles. You're still, if you eat an animal-based diet, there will still be some. In this instance, if you've missed a couple days, no big deal, get right back on track. If you have a race coming up or you're really looking at performance, that's when I might consider preloading. And by that, I mean just upping your dose for the next week and then going back. So we recommend 5 grams a day. If you wanted to take that up to 8 grams or 10 grams over the next week to try to catch up, if you will. If you noticed a difference, that's possible. But after a few days, I really wouldn't worry. I'd look at anything a week, maybe 2 weeks or longer. But again, you will reach that saturation at the 5 grams a day. So I don't know that it's crucial to do unless you're using it specifically for a performance gain or for some health issue. Jen asks, is it okay to take the Pillar triple magnesium daily, even if my lab work doesn't show a need for it? It's been a game changer with my sleep. Jen, 1000%. Yes, absolutely. So first of all, if it helps you and it's been a game changer with your sleep, take it. Getting the best sleep is really, aside from maybe eating a great diet on a consistent basis, could very well be the best performance enhancer that there is. It's also good for aging, for life, longevity, all kinds of health markers. So if this helps you get a good night's sleep, which I can attest to, I love the Pillar magnesium. I noticed the same thing. Absolutely, you can take it every day. It's designed with 3 different kinds of magnesium. It's an excellent product. If it's working, take it. If you're not using it and you're not sleeping well, I suggest you grab it. The magnesium isn't just for sleep, it's also for recovery. Yeah, I noticed the difference. Couldn't recommend it more highly. All right, Sal says, oh, walking through entering a race event in Training Peaks. So I'm going to defer this one to our Tuesday onboarding calls, where Scott actually shows the video of how to do this. So the next, what is the deal with bicarb and the Morton products? Jason, excellent question. So bicarb seems to be the buzz phrase at the moment. It's one of, again, I mentioned, one of the 5 kind of ergonogenic aids that there's a lot of research behind it. The sodium bicarbonate, otherwise known as baking soda. I did a post on our Instagram about it with some information. You can look at that. Last week, Scott did a fantastic, our weekly webinar on beta alanine and sodium bicarbonate. I would suggest going back and watching that, where he goes into all of the details. Well worth it. He will explain. But in relation to Morton, so bicarb is it's used for buffering. It's a base that helps kind of neutralize that lactic acid, which in turn prevents feeling fatigue, that muscle tiredness and soreness. We know that lactic acid is a good thing, but the feeling potentially associated with that is what it helps with. And it is known, like the benefits, limited research yet on endurance sports. There is some that has shown over a 3-hour, 6-hour, 9-hour, 12-hour endurance event, there was some delayed muscle fatigue, but the majority of studies have been done in 30-second to kind of 10, 12 minutes, that amount of time. So it's higher intensity, very fast, very, almost sprint-like movements and activities. So, 100 and 200 freestyle, track and field events, potentially like lifting, heavy lifting, maybe a 5K. One study I saw, I think, had a 10K where they saw some benefits, but clearly most of us are doing significantly more than that. Here's the problem with sodium bicarbonate. Anyone that's tried it knows I would say a 90% chance that you're going to have some GI issues. I've tried it. It definitely made my stomach gassy and bloated. It wasn't pleasant to take. And I really felt like, I don't know, I can't say that I felt anything beneficial, but I don't do a lot of high intensity stuff. Dosing, like you need to time it over several days. You need to have it anywhere from 60 to 150 minutes. Morton recommends 90 minutes before exercise. you have to split the dosage, and I'll kind of get into it on the Morton thing. To avoid GI issues, you want to make it like take smaller doses throughout the day. Here's the thing. Well, let's talk about Morton a little bit. I love Morton. They make great products. This system is like next level like you become a little chemist. I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's, you mix it yourself. There's 3 different components. It ends up being, I kind of think it looks like a chia jelly, like a chia paste. You put the powder in, you mix it with water, you stir it around. Then you add the sodium, then you add the bicarbonate. Then you you take these little spoonfuls of gel, and it's not that particularly tastes bad. It's just the consistency might be hard for some, but it's pricey. And the fact that you can actually get baking soda for very cheap, it's hard to think of spending, I forget what it was, $60 or $70 for, I don't know, 5 servings, 6 servings, something like that. That's kind of mind blowing to me. The nice thing about Morton and what they're reporting is that it causes less GI issues, that they use a quality, and I don't doubt it at all. It's just, could you potentially train your stomach and use regular baking soda pretty consistently, and then switch to the Morton for, the last 2 to 3 weeks before your race? Bicarb is definitely one of those things that, is it worth the potential GI discomfort, the cost, and the very minimal? So studies show a 2 to 3% gain at that high intensity. We really don't have the data for like a longer half Ironman, full Ironman, where that kind of comes in. And I think 2 to 3%, yeah, potentially makes a difference when you're running for the podium. Maybe. Is it necessary for most of us? It does take a lot of work to make sure that your stomach can handle it. So I think you'd really have to weigh the costs. I can't say that for me it's worth it. But again, we've used it within elite level athletes. I think it's something to, if you want to use it, talk to Scott or myself. There's a way to incorporate it. There are benefits. It's definitely an ergogenic aid. But there's also some studies that show it's ergolytic, which means that it decreases performance in a few number of athletes, but who knows, that would probably be my luck that it potentially could decrease performance. So it's not something to just experiment with on a whim. I would say talk to one of us before you're considering it. Yeah. All right. Busted through those questions. Do we have follow-up? Is there anyone on here that would like to ask their own question? I would love it if you have your screen on and you want to ask, anything, all the above. Unmute yourself. Comment if you've used it. Elliot, did we do that with you? The bicarb?
Scott had me do the bicarb. I can't remember which. It was over a year ago before the race. So they'll load up the week before. And I can attest, because I think I missed one, that you definitely, what does it work out to? Is it 4 tablespoons for the day? So 1 tablespoon at a time. And I can attest, because I missed one on one of those days and I did 2 tablespoons and it was unbearable to drink. I didn't actually have any GI issues. But it wasn't, so you have to split it up 4 times a day. You really have to be on it. It's kind of a pain in the rear, and you want to mix it with something to drink, not just water. And to be honest, I didn't notice any difference. But, I've actually for many years been taking, actually the company just changed this stuff called acid block, which I think is the same idea.
Oh.
I've been taking that for 10 years. So it's possible that I didn't feel any effect because I've been doing something similar. And that's the same thing that product's supposed to do. And that's just pill.
Okay.
But But yeah, so I didn't feel GI, but I can definitely tell you. So I haven't done the Martin, but if you're doing the baking soda,
Yeah, it's rough. It's not
it's
pleasant.
not pleasant, right?
Yeah.
And we only did it. It was the week leading up to the race is what we were doing. So, and I didn't notice any difference one way or the other. But it would have either been Ironman Coeur d'Alene, and that was the year it was 105 degrees, or
So
it would
you
have been
weren't sprinting to the finish.
or it would have been Ultraman Arizona. I can't remember which one it was. And so, when you're there that long, you're going to feel it anyway. so if it means you don't feel it till hour 8 instead of hour 7, I'm not sure it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Agreed. Thank you. I'll have to look at that product. I'll maybe screen or take a pic for me.
I can tell you. There was another company that actually we've been getting it from for years. They just went out of business, but this new company took over. It's the same formulation.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yeah, I'll send it to you if you want to look.
So,
and again, we've been taking it for years. Again, it's like a lot of these things you can't really tell. Although my wife also takes it, and she didn't take it. I remember a few years ago, she didn't take it for like a week or two for some reason. I can't remember why. And she said she could tell the difference when she went off of it. So, right? Yeah. She's nodding her head.
Yeah, very well. Right. It's again, highly personal, like the effects, kind of like creatine. Some people feel it, especially plant-based athletes really feel it. Others don't. All right, there it is, everybody. If you want to screenshot that acid block.
Acid block.
Okay, thanks.
Lactic acid reducer. Yes. So.
Okay. Cool potential. I'll look into it. All right, Amy, thanks for raising your hand.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, I've moved from triathlon over to sprinting on the track, on the velodrome, on the bike. But because of the GI issues associated with sodium bicarb, we did a lot of testing on this at the Olympic Training Center, and so sodium bicarb absolutely works at that very upper threshold. If you're doing sprint distance, again, 100-meter in the pool, 200 on the track, 400 on the track, it's extremely effective. But I use this. Not that I'm promoting it. I'm not sponsored. Ah, shit. I hate that one with the virtual background. Hold on one second. Choose my virtual background. None. There we go. So I use AMP, which is the PR lotion. And it's sodium bicarb, but it's topical. And it used to be called like topical. It's been like 3 different names over the years. Hold on one second. Phoebe! Hey! Sorry, crazy foster dog. So yeah, this I put it on my quads, I put it on my glutes. It works really well for me. I use this in triathlon for years. It used to be really sticky like honey, and I hated it. They've improved the texture where it's more like an actual lotion. It's a little grainy, almost like it's got basically baking soda. It's like basically rubbing like a liquid form of baking soda on your legs, but it does get rid of that. Like I'm doing a time trial on Sunday, a 20K time trial, and like I always put this on my quads and on my glutes beforehand, and it does buffer lactic. Like you don't get that screaming legs in the last 5K of a 20K time trial. So I do find that it's very effective for me. I do notice when I don't use it. I try, because from a performance perspective, I try only to use it either when I'm racing or for like key workouts, because I don't want it to be a crutch. Right. And you kind of want to, obviously nothing new on race day, so you've got to do like a race simulation. I've had no problems with it, but I do find I am interested, now that I've moved over to the track, on doing sodium bicarb orally. But again, I race on the velodrome, indoors on the track, on the bike, and the problem is the location of the bathrooms is like up in the stands, and it's not easy to get to. You have to physically cross the track, and I'm like, if I'm like sprinting to the bathroom, that's going to be a problem. So I do find like this is a little bit more practical for now, but yeah, I have flirted with the idea. I'm like, it just you have to be like bathroom adjacent, because it can cause, like, if you're taking it in the right doses for sprinting, which is, it's a pretty hefty dose, it will cause an emergency exit.
That's the perfect, exactly. I end sentence. That's exactly. And I've used the AMP lotion. I really like it. I don't know why I didn't think to.
Yeah, I just think it's a good practical solution for if you have GI issues with sodium bicarb. And again, most of us are endurance athletes. For longer distance stuff, you don't want to add anything that could potentially, because again, we can do all we can simulate everything that we can possibly in training, but you're not going to the well as hard as you are when you're legitimately racing, and that 1 or 2% that you think you might gain from sodium bicarb, like if your GI is causing 30% of your distress, then that's it's become a performance limiter, not a performance enhancer.
Exactly. Thank you. Cindy, yes. You wanted to chime in. Oh, I think you're on mute. Oh, still on mute. No, sorry. Let's see. I can't.
I
got it.
There we go. Okay.
Sorry, my phone just wouldn't let me find the unmute button. Going back on the amp, I'm on the topical amp as well, and so that works really well.
Oh, good.
And I think let me pull volume. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. But Mike, and I love it. And I actually, after a race, I'll put amp on my legs and put my compression tights on and sleep in them. And I feel much better the next day. So I'm on the amp bandwagon. But my question is very different, completely off of this topic. In the app,
yes,
has there been any thought about allowing us to log what time we actually eat the meals as opposed to training? Because sometimes it's in the right order, but it might be something might get in the way and it postpones the workout, or the meal comes a little bit sooner. And I'm wondering if, for me, I think that kind of helps, and especially since I'm using the Lose It app for a lot of my foods and the snacks. And so all the snacks are at the end.
Yeah.
But if I could put the time in on when I had them, for me, it's a little better record.
Yeah, this is the kind of feedback that we need for sure. I'll put it on the list and see. I don't know, especially syncing with the outside apps. Like I know Training Peaks allows you to enter a time. I don't know how Lose It works on the back end, but it's a great suggestion. So
yeah, I just wondered if there was something we could write in, like an extra piece
right.
to your app that we could actually just put it in.
Yeah, it's a great suggestion. I will ask at our stand-up meeting on Monday. Great question.
There you go.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thanks.
All right, Sharon.
Okay, so I am I'm a cyclist, gravel cyclist for the most part. I'm not a big racer. I'm not into 200K rides. I do a lot of riding to the 60 to 100K rides, and I'm over 65. And there is that much information about fueling accurately and well for, women over 60. It's all menopause and women in their 30s and 40s. Got it. It's a whole different thing. But when you're postmenopausal, 65 plus, it's a crapshoot for me. And so there's nothing that there's no reference, because all the tests are done on men or on younger women. Yep. And so my current thing is I have to carry a lot of water with me just because of where I live. I carry dates. I eat a lot just to keep that going. And it's not that I'm out of shape. It's just and I don't know if it's right. It's what's working. I don't know if you have anywhere I can go. What's happening with women over 60 who are active? And
so excellent question and great timing. I just wrote a very long article for Training Peaks. I will make sure that we get it on the blog called Fueling Masters Athletes, on all of the specific things that you need to know. I did dial in a little bit on women. And at a certain point, we, like, women and men issues, especially postmenopausal, there's the same nutritional issues, like, because our hormones or their hormones are relatively the same at that point. Estrogen is significantly lower unless they're on HRT. So in general, again, I will make go search for the article. You can do my last name, but I'll put it in the call note or in the notes for this also. Significantly increasing protein, recovery, you're going to need longer to recover. So prioritizing your workouts, magnesium, I would absolutely recommend the pillar magnesium for that, just to feel better. Consistent fueling, we need to be a little bit more sensitive, in particular with the carbohydrates that we're using. Fructose is particularly troublesome for pre and postmenopausal women. I would absolutely recommend having the creatine in there. So,
Yeah. I use Isogenics products, and they have a performance line that pre, during, and post workout that work really, really well for me. It's got the pre-workout stuff. It's got the branched chain amino acid and creatine, the whole thing, and the post recovery, the repair product is fantastic. I can do a 100K ride and not have stiff muscles the next day. So, yay. But I like the idea of the bicarb, the topical, because there are times when, the legs are screaming. But, so I'm going at this, at the fueling of 60 grams carb per hour. And I don't know if anyway, it's a crapshoot.
For a lot of us, until we learn what our bodies need and when we need it and what time. And but I think hopefully in the app, you've got your details in there of your training and your racing and your body composition goals, and we can work through that to make sure that you're getting enough of what you need in the right amounts. And then from there, you kind of, if performance suffers or sleep suffers or improves, then you're either doing something right or something wrong.
Yeah. I think one of the things I do notice is I probably overtrain. I'm thinking I'm 40.
Yes.
And 25 years later, the body's not doing it's actually doing more than it was when I was 40. But my reference point are all the women I hang who are 35 and 45, realizing
I know.
This is probably not smart.
Yes, I feel, and as I get older, I'm feeling it for sure. I know it well.
Literally putting the feet up.
Exactly. All right. Amy asks,
Okay,
what about the timing of creatine, pre-strength training, before, after both, extra on hard? So Amy, great question. Definitely, you don't need to do more. 5 grams is plenty, even on the harder days. Research shows that it doesn't, the biggest thing is to take it consistently. If you are focusing on strength training, potentially competitively, there could be a benefit either before or after. But what matters most is that you take it consistently every day. 5 grams, and that you'll reach that full saturation within 3 to 4 weeks. Great question, though. All right. Well, crew, I think that's probably it for today. If there aren't any other questions, this was a good one. Hopefully, I think we touched on a lot of different things. Thank you for the input, everybody, on your experiences, products that work for you. This is kind of how we all learn. I love sharing because, I miss stuff. Everybody, it's good to see what actually works. I can only test so many things on myself before I reach my limit. So thanks all for the input. And
need anybody over 65 to test stuff.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Elliot. I'll go and take a look. All right, guys, have a great night. We will see you next week.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.